Hi and welcome. A lot of people asked me to do a quick recap of our webinar from April 21st, 10 a.m. So here goes. We had special guest Chris Schulthies from Y Management, returning guest Basel Chenir from Blinko, and Shawn as our BDC specialist. And yours truly, the host, Eric Anctil from Kaizenergy. Our agenda was simple. We did a quick opinion survey with the attendees. We also looked at the impact of attitude and leadership moving forward. And then we looked at the different stages of what's happening, meaning looking at what's currently going on, what's going to happen when we start to reopen, and in between that, there might be some sub phases that I wanted to discuss. So, going into attitude, we talked about the fact that there's going to be people who out there are pessimistic about it, another are optimistic, but really you need to have both. As this particular slide indicates, the pessimist doesn't like the fact that there's wind, the optimist waits for the wind to change, whereas the realist says, I'm just going to adjust my sail. We also looked at opportunities and challenges within this. An optimist will see opportunities and the pessimist will see the challenge, but together they can really make it work. Like the optimist will invent the airplane, the pessimist will invent the parachute. So really need both sides in order to move forward. Then we talked about the role of leadership and who the leaders are. You're going to have some positive and negative leaders in your environment, so you need to find out who they are, and your negative leaders will actually contribute just as much as your positive leaders. Oftentimes, negative leaders are just fed up because things are not working right, and they might bring actually a lot more solutions than you think. Then we looked at a very interesting stat from a study looking at consumer behavior over 6 stages here. And as you can see, we're looking at stage 4, 5, and 6, where we're preparing for confinement, we're in confinement, and then we get to be released out of confinement, if you will. So more specifically, when we look at the confinement phase, that's when we're working from home and we have to maintain physical distancing, and if we want to buy a car, for example, we can't, or it's very limited with online, phone, email, texting, and not every dealer is set up for that. The phase following that is the phase where we return to work, but there's no vaccine, so we still have to do the precautions of the physical distancing and sanitary cautions and all these things. So you can imagine a dealership being open on the sales side where you need a plexiglass between the speaker and the customer to make sure that there's no contamination. Then we get into phase 3 where we're back to normal, and I say normal in quotation mark because nobody knows what that's really going to be. And I think we're going to have new expectations where people think, I think those sanitary conditions need to be maintained. Some people will have credit issues. They may want to downsize their vehicle. Handshakes probably going to be a little bit out of the ordinary for most people. They're not going to want to do it. And then making sure the vehicle has been sanitized and ready to go is going to become a norm, not just during COVID confinement. Then we see that there's a spark of light at the end of the tunnel, looking at the fact that perhaps the coronavirus is what triggered most dealerships to finally embark on online shopping, both from the customer's point of view and from the dealership's point of view. And what that could look like could be a simple process where parts of it are done online, parts of it are done in dealer, or parts of it are done at home. In fact, you could have a mix of all three, or somebody may choose to do everything from one point of view, and that's where we're going to need to adapt. And at the end, where we're talking about maintaining a positive attitude, basically nobody has a crystal ball to predict the future, but the best way to predict the future is to create it. So we have an opportunity to orchestrate what the future is going to look like, and perhaps look at what the best practices come out of this from a lot of the unlikely places. Perhaps the people in your team that you did not think were leaders might actually come up with some great solutions. And our panel finished at the end with a little farewell word of advice, and keynote speakers were all saying a few things. I think everybody appreciated everybody's different perspective, and I look forward to having another one of these webinars in the near future. So thank you everybody for your involvement.